Parents who've snooped through their teenagers' stuff. What's the weirdest thing you've ever found? Story 1. I went to my 10-year-old daughter's school for parent-teacher conferences and opened her locker. There wasn't much in it, but lying at the bottom was a book from our local library about how to plan a wedding. Not a fun one with pictures of dresses. It was called Wedding Rites, a complete guide to traditional vows, music, ceremonies, blessings, and interfaith services. I was baffled, and her teachers and I had a good laugh about it. When I got home and asked her, she explained that she and her best friend were trying to marry their dogs to each other. Story 2. When I was 19, I came home from a night out with my girlfriends to find my mother hysterical, crying and dramatically shouting, "How could you do this to me?" She had found a sandwich bag with an unknown substance and decided it had to be heroin. She genuinely believed I was secretly a drug addict. It was bacon-flavored dog treats for our Chihuahua. I had portioned them out so they wouldn't get stale. Pretty obvious she had no idea what heroin actually looked like. The fact that she went straight to heroin and skipped every other possibility is so wild. Mom's be inventing entire crime dramas in 5 seconds. When I was about 17, I bought my first vibe. Let's just say I got very attached to it. I kept it under my pillow every night like it was a damn stuffed teddy bear. Not just because I was using it non-stop, but because I didn't want anyone finding it. Obviously, my dad was an alcoholic throughout most of my life. God bless him. When he drank, he turned into the softest, sappiest human alive. Total crying drunk. He'd barge into my room out of nowhere, sobbing and wanting to hug it out, then start apologizing for being a terrible dad. For the record, he wasn't. He was amazing. Just had a little too much emotional floodgate when he was drinking. So one night, I had just wrapped up a solo session. I still had my little portable DVD player beside the bed, and yeah, it had some adult content on it. The vibe was tucked safely under my pillow per usual. I was half asleep, minding my business, when I heard him stumble into the room. He sits on the edge of my bed, full on weeping, slurring sweet nothings like, "I'm so sorry, you deserved better, I love you so much." I actually start tearing up too, trying to reassure him. "You're the best dad ever. You don't need to feel bad. I love you no matter what." Then he lays down and throws an arm around me in this emotional cuddle moment. And that's when disaster strikes. One of his arms slides under my pillow. He freezes. I freeze. You could hear the air suck out of the room. I knew he felt it. I didn't even need to look at him. You could feel the awkward radiating off his skin. Trying to shift gears, he jumps up like he sat on a tack, and in a desperate attempt to change the subject, blurts out, "Sue, what you watchin'?" He grabs my DVD player, pops it open, and boom. There's the adult movie menu looking back at him like, "Hey there, stranger." He slams it shut, presses his lips together like he's trying not to scream, stares at the floor for a second, then scratches his head and says, "Welp, I'm going to bed." Walks out without another word. I just lay there staring at the ceiling like, what in the actual fuck just took place? We never talked about it again. To this day, I want to melt into the floor every time I think about that night. But man, I miss him. He was never weird about it. Just the poor guy caught in the single most awkward parental moment of all time. That went from chaotic to tender to pure emotional horror in under 2 minutes. Like, there's cringe and then there's soul leaving the body cringe. But somehow it's still weirdly wholesome? Damn. Story 4. When I was 15, I had a boyfriend who used to write me these insanely dramatic letters. Like full-on Shakespearean tragedy, I would die without you type stuff. I loved it. I kept them all in a little metal lockbox under my bed like they were sacred scrolls or something. One night I came home and saw the lockbox open on my desk. My mom was sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine and a stack of the letters spread out in front of her like she was grading them phone and structure. She just looked at me and said, "This boy is deeply unstable." I was horrified. Absolutely mortified. She wasn't even mad. She was just disappointed in his syntax. She spent the next half hour giving me unsolicited feedback on how I deserved better writing and how he was probably going to end up in jail for tax fraud. She wasn't wrong. He is in jail now. Not for tax fraud, though. It was arson. Honestly, her calling out the syntax instead of the drama, iconic mom behavior, and the foreshadowing, chef's kiss. Story 5. My mom would trash my bedroom every Friday. She was looking for weed, which I did not smoke. She'd dump my drawers on the floor, take my clothes off the hangers and turn the pockets out. The further she got without finding what she was looking for, the angrier she got, and the more destructive. Then when I'd get home from school, she'd say I had 15 minutes to clean my room or I was grounded for the weekend. There was no way for me to meet her demands. So I made a fake joint out of paper and oregano and put it in a place she'd find it quickly. She pulled me out of school and took me for a drug test, which I passed. Then she took me to her therapist. She was out of her mind and showed the therapist the joint and asked how I could have passed the drug test. That therapist laughed and said neither one of us knew anything about weed. Anyway, she stopped searching my room like that. I now understand that after my parents divorced, my mom was terrified of losing me, so she did terrible things to ensure I had nobody but her. That did not work out the way she planned. The oregano joint was bold, but honestly, genius move. Sad how fear made her act like that, but at least the chaos finally stopped. Story 6. When my oldest daughter moved out, she thought she took her whole knife collection with her. Wrong. We found 7 more knives over the course of the next year as we slowly cleaned the room out. Knives that she didn't even remember she had. It wasn't creepy like something was wrong with her. It was just like, how in the world do you amass this many collectible knives by the age of 18? Doing laundry and finding a pile of the nastiest, crustiest, stiffest, most used-up men's socks one could ever encounter. Those socks held an entire planet-wide generation of semen. I said it was the last time I would ever do our son's laundry. He was 15 and more than old enough to do his own. Only became more disturbing when I realized that was my very adult, mid-30s brother's laundry, left over from when his washer had been broken and he was washing at our house. For my youngest, the worst thing we've found is a fart bag where she and her bestie were trying to save up farts. They had one at bestie's house too. Her mom made them throw it out saying it was unsanitary. I just howled and left it alone. A fart bag. Hilarious. Why didn't I ever try that as a kid? This whole family's got layers. Weaponry, crusty artifacts and experimental gas storage, absolute chaos. I love it here. Story 7. Found a notebook labeled Top Secret Plans. Inside was a full blueprint for how they'd fake sick to skip school, complete with fake cough sound effects and a backup crying strategy if I didn't buy it. I was half impressed, half offended. They even wrote, "Mom might pretend to be mad, but she'll secretly respect the hustle." They were right. Story 8. I was like 13, living in a rural area, and my best friend at the time was always up to something. For some reason, we got it in our heads that we could secretly raise chickens in the forest behind my house, so we bought an entire chicken starter kit, complete with feed, lights, a book on how to do it right. We attempted to shoplift a few baby chicks in her sweater from the farm supply store, but got caught on the way out. The plan never materialized because no one would sell us baby chicks. Later, my mother found the starter stuff in my closet. It was a weird conversation. She was expecting to find drugs. She was mainly mad the store didn't call her when we got caught attempting to shoplift baby chicks. The fact that she was more mad about not getting a call from the store than about the attempted chicken heist is actually so mom-coded. Story 9, I've got the reverse. I was about 14 and snooping my parents' closet and found an envelope marked private. I wasn't sure what kind of secrets my parents held, but I couldn't help but take a look. Let me tell you, a bunch of developed pictures of my mom in lingerie wasn't what I expected. I vowed to never snoop again because 14 years later and I still can't scrub my memory. Oof, that's one memory that sticks for sure. Snooping is a gamble. Sometimes you just open doors you wish stayed closed. Story 10, a suicide note. He was in an ambulance, intubated on the way to the hospital. 25 years later, he's a great son and father. That's heavy but hopeful as hell. Shows how far people can come. Sometimes the darkest moments don't define us forever. Story 11. I have 2 boys. I generally try to avoid going through their rooms unless it's absolutely necessary. So background information. They're not allowed to take food in their rooms. They're allowed to snack or whatever, I just want them to do it at the dining table and clean up after themselves. All the spoons disappeared. I found them and a bunch of pudding cups in my oldest nightstand. The house started to stink. The air return goes through my youngest son's closet. I looked and found a suitcase full of half-eaten food that was turning into a science project. He'd sneak food in his room and think he was about to get caught, so he'd stash the scraps in the suitcase and toss it in his closet. Oldest moved out for college, the stink arose. I found a pint of Ben & Jerry's sitting on a shelf in his closet. Story 12. My mom found some very personal notes my boyfriend wrote me in high school, early 90s. She went ballistic when I got home from school because she thought we were being more serious than we were. Not that it would have been a huge deal. We were 16, but we hadn't done anything. He was just writing stories starring me. Story 13. One of my best friends keeps tabs on his teenager's device and internet usage. He's an IT security manager who used to be a forensic accountant. He knows his stuff. He mostly sets the usual parental alerts and blocks, but is super thorough about preventing workarounds. About his 17-year-old son's habits over the past few years, it's so boring. God, it's so fucking boring. It's all literally Fortnite. Classic teenage obsession. Honestly, if Fortnite is all they do, that's one predictable and slightly tragic digital life. But hey, at least it's not worse. Story 14. Not a parent, but I stumbled across my little sister's diary when I was cleaning her room, just oldest daughter things. Because I was an asshole, I read a few pages and discovered she's secretly a great writer. She has no interest in writing fiction. She didn't even finish high school, but she was describing the mundane details of her life with incredible humor and observation. I've never said anything, but I hope she's still keeping a diary. Story 15. I'm not my parents, but they told me and my sister that the weirdest, funniest thing they ever uncovered were the shitty adult comics my sister and I drew for each other when we were young teens. We would take turns drawing a row of panels so we would add on to the story we were building together. Mostly it was an excuse to say swear words we weren't allowed to say. The one that forever lives in my head is one my sister drew herself and slipped under my door to share with me while we were supposed to be sleeping. It was a really well-drawn SpongeBob comic that had him going around town and saying, "fuck you" to everyone, and him waking up the next morning, thinking it was a dream. All the townspeople were in his bedroom and told him, "fuck you," as a response, because it wasn't a dream after all. Our parents discovered our hoard of comics hidden under my sister's mattress when they went to replace it. My sister and I were both in tears, thinking we were both going to get in trouble, but our parents were laughing their asses off. My sister still has those comics somewhere, and she recently found them again, and we read them all. Our childish humor still mostly holds up. We both still make comics in our spare time, so that was the beginning of a side hobby we share. Story 16. When I was a teen, my dad found me and my friend missing from my room because we had snuck out. He called me, telling us to get home immediately. I had a car but didn't take it. Logic being, if I don't sneak out using my car can't be taken away from me. Also, I decided to take some shrooms that night. By the time we got back to my room, I was pretty gone. No, we did not use the door. Yes, we snuck back directly into my room. My dad came to check we were back and started telling me my consequences very angrily, until he looked into my eyes and saw my pupils. All he said after that was, "Damn it," my name, and walked away. Yes, I indeed got grounded from my car. Story 17. I snooped through Google searches. 2 hours of chicken butts. I'm not joking. After 10 p.m. Chicken poop, chicken laying eggs, chicken cloaca, chicken laying slow-mo, cloaca. I was convinced my kid was jerking off to chicken butts. Turns out there was an earlier discussion about different kinds of eggs that come from non-mammals. Snakes lay soft eggs, birds lay hard eggs, bug eggs are sometimes laid in lines or groups, spider eggs are laid in a sack, etc. And he thought chickens laying eggs was hilarious. It hadn't occurred to him that multiple hours of this after 10 p.m. could be viewed as possibly sexual. Story 18. My wife's brother, when he was a toddler, used to hide his apple juice in his room until it fermented. She told me he would come walking down the hall, toddler drunk off of fermented apple juice, and they could never figure out where he was hiding it. Toddler booze inventor? That's next level mischief. Can't blame the kid. Homemade juice buzz sounds wild.